If you wanted the cheapest possible combination of a record player and cassette player in 2012, then your friends at Ion had you covered with the Duo Deck. They call it an ultra-portable USB turntable with cassette deck. And as they showed, its intended purpose was to connect it to your computer via USB to digitize your old records and tapes. It came with a USB cable as well as Ion's Easy Vinyl Tape Converter software for Mac and PC. One thing that stands out to me on its list of features is the claim that it plays and converts both normal and chrome cassette tapes. Wonder if that means it does the proper equalization for chrome tapes. And you probably can't read it on the video, but the serial number begins with 1207, which means this one was made in July 2012. Inside the box, it has an ad for Ion's Vinyl Alive record cleaning kit. This message saying, "Important, please read before returning product." And it has some troubleshooting guides and email support and telephone support. I wonder if that's still in service. There's the manual and the CD with the software on it. Then there's the unit itself with the USB cable wrapped around it, which I doubt is the way it came from the factory, so someone has definitely used this at least once, even though it's in the original box and has original styrofoam. This very compact design with a tiny platter looks kind of like an Audio-Technica Soundburger or the Crosley knockoff of it, except it doesn't have the lid that clamps down on top of it. And over here is the cassette player part of it, with a non-soft eject door, and nobody ever peeled off the protective film around the buttons. So let me take care of that now. And on this side is the single minuscule built-in speaker, the USB port, headphone jack, and switches for selecting phono or tape, 33 or 45 RPM speed, and USB or battery power. Speaking of which, it can run on 4 AA batteries, although in my case the battery cover door is missing and I did not see it in the box. And the only thing on the other side of it is a racing stripe and a mysterious knockout plug. To use the record player, you can unclip the tone arm from its storage hook and move it over to the side and then fold this down. You get a 45 RPM adapter for playing 7-inch singles with the large center hole. And the only other control on it is the on-off volume control dial. The record player's very small platter was made of plastic, but it does include this silicone rubber platter mat as at least a token effort at preventing your records from slipping on it. It's a little bit disappointing that it doesn't have 78 RPM speed, but I've actually seen some of this style of record player, minus the cassette player on the side, which are 33 1/3 RPM only, so we're lucky this one at least has 45. My sacrificial test record will be exciting news about chronic gastritis and gastric dyspepsia on this very ringy styrene 33 1/3 RPM 7-inch record.
In this, the 5th recording in our medical news service series, we present a study on gastritis and gastric dyspepsia performed in Czechoslovakia by Drs. Z. Maratka and Dr. J. Setka. Their report appears in Gastroenterology.
That was turned all the way up, so the built-in speaker certainly doesn't get very loud.
Chronic gastritis and gastric dyspepsia are very common occurrences. Naturally, they very often coexist. And now for your musical relaxation, we present on the reverse side of this recording waltzes, polkas, and marches by Joseph Strauss and Johann Strauss Jr., with Anton Paulik conducting the Vienna State Opera Orchestra.
As expected for such a simple record player, there is no auto stop, so when it's done playing you just have to pick up the tone arm and return it to the rest by hand. And there is no queuing lever to help you queue up a record at the beginning. You just have to do everything manually. And yes, it will play a full-size 12-inch LP. It has just enough room to clear the edge of the record. Well, it seems to be playing okay. It's playing at roughly the correct speed and doesn't appear to be damaging the record, but that tiny built-in speaker certainly leaves a lot to be desired. So hopefully it sounds a lot better through a direct hookup. Like many inexpensive record players, it does occasionally skip when playing some modern records that have more bass cut into the groove than what its tone arm was designed to handle. But it should have no problem playing older records which were more conservatively mastered. The record player's phono cartridge is the infamous Chuo Denshi CZ800 ceramic cartridge, or in this case, most likely a Chinese knockoff of it. So let me see about that right now. I'll try to pop it off and inspect it. And yep, it was made by some company called NSE, which I haven't heard of before. And if this is telling the truth, it was made in Taiwan, and it has a sapphire stylus with a plastic cantilever, which is not the best, but you can upgrade this with a diamond stylus. And as for tracking force, the recommended range for this ceramic cartridge is 4 to 6 grams. And this one is almost exactly 6 grams. So that's right at the limit, but it's acceptable.
However, a force of 6 to 8 grams is considered already on the high side and should not be exceeded. A force of 1 to 2 grams is to be preferred.
The turntable's wow and flutter is actually surprisingly good. It's around 0.1 to 0.15% WRMS, and as you can see, the speed is about 0.5% fast, which is close enough that I wouldn't bother trying to adjust it. The cassette deck has buttons for stop, fast forward, rewind, play, and eject. No record. It's playback only. The cassette player door has 2 little windows in it, which in this case are just right for peering into the mechanism and seeing that it does in fact have a stereo playback head. The diagram on the door reminds you that you have to put in the cassette upside down because the controls are on the top.
Listening to the radio, driving in your car. Radio gets results.
Sounds like it's playing a little bit too fast. I'll have to see if I can get inside this and adjust the motor speed. Otherwise, okay.
Radio gets results. Radio gets results. That's radio.
Now, we're checking out another extra long set of music.
And the auto stop works. And like the record player, despite the mono built-in speaker, the cassette player does play in stereo through the outputs.
I am speaking from the left. My name is David.
I am speaking from the right. My name is Mary.
I am still on the left. This is a quick channel identification test.
And I am still on the right.
but there's no sensor for detecting chrome or metal tapes, nor is there a manual switch for it. So while this can play chrome and metal tapes, they won't have the proper equalization. This hole in the door is for adjusting the azimuth or alignment of the tape head, and the easiest way to do that is to play a good quality pre-recorded cassette containing a live recording with applause and adjust it for the brightest, clearest sound. You'll need a very small Phillips or preferably JIS screwdriver, and what you're actually turning is this screw right next to the tape head. Right about there. Now the azimuth is properly adjusted. The screws holding on the bottom cover are hidden underneath the rubber feet, and once you remove it, you can see the main circuit board. And there are trimmers marked 33 and 45, which are obviously for adjusting the record player speed, and there's this third trimmer which is not marked, that's for adjusting the cassette player speed. And it just so happens that those trimmers line up with the holes in the bottom cover, so you don't actually need to remove it to access them. And there I marked which holes you use to access those speed adjustment trimmers. And if you need to replace the turntable belt, it's actually done from inside. You remove these screws holding on the motor, and then you can slip on a new belt. And hiding down in there is the cassette player mechanism, which actually does have a metal flywheel. To adjust the speed, I have this tape which has a 1 kHz tone on it, and I'll be using this frequency counter app on my tablet. It does not need a direct connection. It can just do it being played through the cassette player speaker and picked up through the tablet's microphone. That's close enough.
As an additional check, we are going to play you some stereophonic music. If your speakers are correctly balanced, then you should hear the piano on your left-hand side, the double bass on your right-hand side, and the drums exactly midway between your two speakers.
And the cassette player's wound flutter is around 0.2 to 0.25% WRMS, which is not great, but not terrible either. As for connecting the USB output to your computer, Windows or Mac OS will automatically load the driver for it, and it shows up as a USB microphone. The manual does mention that you may need to go into your control panel and change it from 1 channel to 2 channel to record the audio in stereo, but at least in my case it already came set to 2 channel 16-bit 48,000 Hz DVD quality, and in fact is grayed out, so I can't even change it if I wanted to. You can use the Easy Vinyl tape converter software that Ion provides, and they still have it available for download on their website, but I prefer to use a free program called Ocean Audio. So I'll give you a sample from this tape I digitized using the Ion Duodec. I know I have a reputation for being an apologist for cheap audio gear, but I certainly have encountered more than a few products which at first seemed promising, but had 1 or 2 fatal flaws which ruined the whole thing. And my expectations were not very high going into this review of the Ion Duodec, but it has surprised me, because it's actually not that bad.
What? You are joking!
It obviously was built down to a price, but it seems like it was made using good quality parts, and it does exactly what it was intended to provide an affordable and very easy way to transfer your old records and tapes into your computer via USB. For a low-cost product that was aimed at the average consumer in 2012, I think it works well and delivers acceptable sound quality. And that's all I can really ask for.
A really good man.